So today we are going to discuss about the complications of premature babies and how we care for them. So the premature babies, as you know, they are very tiny and all their organ systems are immature, so they can have a lot of many complications. So they are born before full term. So before 37 weeks premature babies are born. They have immature organs, so the problems due to immature organs occur, and they are prone to complications also. Even in the NICU, many problems like superadded infections and other problems can happen, so they need special care. So we are going to discuss about challenges of preterm birth. So from head to toe, if we look at the challenges of the preterm birth, in the brain intraventricular hemorrhage can occur because if you see the ventricular spaces, you know we have lateral ventricle, third ventricle and fourth ventricle. So near the lateral ventricle, this area is known as germinal matrix area, and this in the germinal matrix area the neurons form and then they migrate to the peripheral cortex area. So the germinal matrix area, because there are here the capillaries are very fragile, so they can break down very easily, and this can lead to intraventricular hemorrhage. The intraventricular hemorrhage, it has far-reaching consequences. The baby can develop spastic diplegia, a form of cerebral palsy in which their lower limbs are more affected later on in life. So we have to monitor these babies for intraventricular hemorrhage by doing regular ultrasound of the brain. These are the CT pictures. They are showing you the various grades of intraventricular hemorrhage. The grade 1, 2, 3, grade 4. In the grade 4, parenchymal hemorrhage is also there, and they have worse prognosis. Next we come to retinopathy of prematurity. So after the brain, we will discuss about the eyes of the baby. So even their retina is not properly mature. So what happens if we look at, so now we will discuss retinopathy of prematurity. So if we look at the retina of a full term baby, so in a retina of a full term baby, the blood vessels, they have almost reached up to the limbus area. So all the blood vessels, they are properly developed. But in premature babies, because whenever a premature baby is born and due to the hypoxia, the blood vessels, they start, their growth stops for a while, and after that abnormal growth starts. The most important factor which contributes to retinopathy of prematurity is exposure to excessive oxygen. So whenever a lot of oxygen is given to the babies, these vessels, they start to proliferate abnormally, and when they start to proliferate abnormally, they can even detach the retina, and when retinal detachment occurs, the baby can develop blindness. So as a pediatrician, our role is to detect this retinopathy of prematurity early. So we do serial retinal examinations of these premature babies, and when we detect that retinopathy of prematurity is occurring, we can go for laser therapy. Then premature babies, they can have hearing deficit also. So we have to screen these babies early for any hearing problem. So we follow a rule of 136. So we screen all the babies till 1 month of the age by using BERA test. BERA test is brainstem evoked response audiometry. By placing the electrodes, we see that whether the baby, the hearing signals, they are reaching up to the brainstem or not. So by first month, we do BERA screening all these babies, and then if the result is not conclusive, we confirm the result by 3 months, and then by 6 months we put hearing aid in these babies, because as you know, the monosyllable speech, it develops at 6 months of the age. So that is the right time when a baby starts to hear the words and sounds, and then maybe can develop speech properly. So we do BERA test in these babies. Then the most important complication which premature babies, they develop is respiratory distress. So respiratory distress means the baby will have rapid breathing. In newborns, we say rapid breathing as more than 60 breaths per minute. Then they can have subcostal and intercostal retraction. You can see the ribs, they are moving inwards, the intercostal spaces, they are moving inwards while the baby is trying to inspire. And then they can develop grunting also. So grunting, they close their glottis and they try to increase the positive and expiratory pressure at the end of expiration. So this type of sound comes, so that is grunting. Now, why these babies develop respiratory distress? So in our normal breathing, our alveoli do not collapse, our alveoli are kept open. As you know, every surface has got a surface tension, and in our alveoli we have surfactant that reduces surface tension. So our alveoli, they are not collapsed. Our alveoli remain inflated even after when we exhale. But in the premature babies, because they have lack of surfactant, so because of the surface tension, their alveoli collapse, and that leads to respiratory distress, tachypnea and grunting. And now another problem is of patent ductus arteriosus. So as you know that in the fetal life, patent ductus arteriosus is important. It carries the blood from the aorta to the pulmonary trunk, because the lungs do not participate in the respiration during the fetal life. But if after birth this patent ductus arteriosus is patent, then it causes left to right shunting. The blood is shunting from the aorta to the pulmonary trunk, and then it goes to the lungs, and it leads to respiratory distress, increased oxygen requirements, and because the blood is not going through the aorta, it leads to shock, renal failure. All these problems occur due to patent ductus arteriosus. Then another problem is necrotizing enterocolitis. So when we start feeding these babies, they, because of their immature intestine, they are not able to tolerate the feeding. Because of the superadrenal infection, they develop necrotizing enterocolitis. In necrotizing enterocolitis, their intestines are damaged and they have a fulminant course. They develop abdominal distension initially, and they can have bleeding from stool. Then even perforation can occur, and even death can occur due to necrotizing enterocolitis. So the hallmark of necrotizing enterocolitis is, if you look at the X-ray abdomen of the baby, so you will find pneumatosis intestinalis. Pneumatosis intestinalis means, pneumo means air, so there is air in the intestinal wall. This you can see in the biopsy specimen also, that there is air in the intestinal wall. Now why air occurs in the intestinal wall? Because of the bacterial translocation. The bacteria, they generate gases, and these gases, they accumulate in the intestinal wall, and they lead to pneumatosis intestinalis. And when this disease progresses due to the inflammation, these intestines can perforate and baby can have pneumoperitoneum. Now how we can reduce when the baby is still in the mother's womb? How can we help this baby? So whenever a premature delivery is impending, we have to shift the mother to a higher center, to a tertiary center, because neonatal transport of a premature baby is risky. So ideally the baby should be shifted in utero. Then we can give mother antenatal steroid. So we can give dexamethasone to the mother. Dexamethasone is a very cheap therapy, just 10 rupees is the cost of the vial. And we can use betamethasone also, but it is not readily available. So even in our national guidelines, we give dexamethasone. So we give in between 24 to 34 weeks. If the mother is having preterm labor, we can give betamethasone and dexamethasone. Dexamethasone, we have to give 4 doses of 6 mg 12 hours apart, IV, and the action starts after 24 hours and it remains for 7 days. So what are the benefits of antenatal steroids? So antenatal steroids, they mature all the organs of the baby. They help in the maturation. So they reduces mortality, they reduces the incidence of intraventricular hemorrhage, reduces respiratory distress, reduces sepsis, and reducing necrotizing enterocolitis. So all these complications which we have discussed, they get their incidence is reduced if we use antenatal steroid. So now baby is born. So immediately after birth, so in the antenatal period we can give antenatal steroid, and immediately after birth a small premature baby is born. So what we can do to help the baby? So we do initial steps, like we take the baby to the warmer, we open the airway, we do suction, we do drying, we do stimulation, and oxygen we give to the baby. So we can help the baby to maintain temperature by applying this plastic wrap. So commercially it is known as cling wrap, the cling wrap which you use when you eat burger, so it is placed on the burger. So that is the cling wrap. The property of the cling wrap is it is thermostable. So even when you are putting the baby in the warmer, it doesn't get warm easily, it doesn't melt, and it helps in the temperature maintenance of the baby. Then we can do delayed cord clamping. So all the animals except humans, they practice delayed cord clamping. In delayed cord clamping, we do not immediately after birth, we do not tie the cord of the baby, we tie it after 1 minute. And so by tying after 1 minute, extra volume of blood is transferred to the baby. It helps in reducing the chances of anemia, it increases the iron stores in the baby, and it reduces the chances of intraventricular hemorrhage, because intraventricular hemorrhage mostly occurs in premature babies because of shock. And when we are giving extra amount of the blood, it acts as a bolus and it helps in prevention of the shock. Then instead of the ambu bag which we use to deliver the oxygen in the baby, we can use this neopuff. So in the neopuff, you set peak inspiratory pressure and then you also set the positive end expiratory pressure, so that the alveoli doesn't collapse at end expiration, and it helps in opening up the alveoli so that the baby doesn't develop respiratory distress, or the chance of respiratory distress is reduced. Then we use continuous nasal positive airway pressure. So we use CPAP in the babies. CPAP helps in opening up their alveoli. A continuous pressure is applied to their airways. If you look at the chest X-ray of these babies, the chest X-ray of these babies, they look like ground glass. Ground glass means the lungs are collapsed, the lung is not properly ventilated, and you can see a lot of white spaces. This white spaces signifies collapse of the alveoli has occurred. Then we can give surfactant. So after the CPAP, if the babies they have higher oxygen requirement, so normally we use a cutoff of a fractional inspired oxygen, FiO2 of 30 to 40%, then we can give surfactant to these babies. So surfactant, it is a chemical, it is a phospholipid, now it is available commercially, and this we can give intratracheally through endotracheal tube to these babies, and it immediately causes decrease in the surface tension, leading to the opening of the alveoli and decrease in the respiratory distress. So first of all, we intubate the baby, then for the surfactant we use this endotracheal tube. This endotracheal tube is a side tube also, through which we instill the surfactant. These are common brands like Survanta and Neosurf. So how they prepare, these are known as natural surfactants. So natural surfactant are prepared from the bovine, from the calves of the lungs of the calf. They prepare these surfactants, and after giving the surfactant, we rapidly extubate the baby to CPAP back again. And if the baby is requiring more FiO2 of more than 50%, then we take these babies on ventilator. In ventilator, we use lowest pressures which is necessary for the chest inflation, and we target a tidal volume of 4 to 5 ml per kg, and then we use gentle ventilation. So we allow permissive hypercapnia. So we do blood gases after half an hour, and in blood gases we accept carbon dioxide, PaCO2 up to 55, provided the pH is more than 7.2. And oxygen saturation we keep between 91 to 95. As we have discussed, that retinopathy of prematurity can occur if we give more oxygen to these babies. So we monitor the oxygen saturation. So this is a baby which is kept in the NICU, and baby is on ventilator. And if you look at the saturation, it is 94, so it is all right. We have to keep between 91 to 95%. Then apart from the ventilation, the important thing is that we have to practice aggressive nutrition to the babies, because nutrition will help in the growth of the baby, will help in the growth of their lungs also. So for all the babies, we start with enteral nutrition first. So we give either by nasogastric tube or by orogastric tube. We provide them with preferably their mother's own milk, and if mother's own milk is not available, we use donor milk. In our hospital we have milk bank also. And if a baby cannot be fed enterally, then we start with the total parental nutrition. So we have commercially available proteins, amino acids with us, intralipid, this is a lipid with us, and then we give IV lipids and amino acid through a central line to these babies, and then we monitor the growth in these babies with the help of these charts. And this is human milk bank also we have. So there the mothers, they donate. First of all, we screen the mothers for infection like hepatitis B, HIV. After we have ruled out, we collect their milk and then we send this milk for pasteurization so that no microorganisms remain in these, and then we give this to the babies. Asepsis is very important in NICU because premature babies, they are prone to infections and we don't want that they should have infection. So proper hand washing and proper sterilization is very important, and these are the protocols which we follow. Now if we look in the womb, a baby is in the flex posture. Baby's eyes are closed, there is no light in the womb, no extraneous sound can enter the baby's ears because the baby is covered with the amniotic fluid. So what baby can hear is just the heartbeat of the mother. While if you look at the conventional NICU, you can see a lot of nurses are there, they are talking, the monitors are ringing, ventilator is there, so many interventions, so many procedures we do. We feed them, we change their diapers, we put IV cannula. So all these things, they disturb the baby. So we have to practice developmental supportive care. So developmental supportive care means we want to create a womb-like environment. So you have to flex the baby. So if you look at here, so here all the limbs of the baby are flexed. We have put a nesting. This is known as nesting. This is just we can make this nesting by just our pillows or our sheets which are available in our NICU. So the baby is kept in a flex posture, and the nurses, they cluster their activities to allow uninterrupted sleep. Mother performs kangaroo mother care. Baby hear mother's voice, and we maintain a quiet background. And we have to keep a watch on these complications. Thank you.